This was not a black and white riot. Race played very little part in any of these riots, or despite the EDL's and black street gangs' attempts at making it so. What is certain is that the riots had many different causes. I would say the main cause was that a generation of people were being brought up as degenerate capitalist consumers of material and goods such as TVs, iPods and trainers. You didn't see many poor people on the streets in the riots. They all had the fashionable Nike trainers, the Nike hoods and everything else that goes with being what they would say having street credibility. But whereas those people may be of little substance, Tariq Jahoun, the father who lost one of his sons as 3 Asian men were run down in Birmingham, which may have had a racial element to it as the driver was a black man of Afro-Caribbean descent, as it has turned out. This could be the reason why I will speak about the Balkanization of England later on in the video. But let's listen to what Euronews has to say.
A grief-stricken father has been talking about the moment when he attempted to save his son's life after he'd been struck by a car during overnight riots in Birmingham. The victim died along with 2 other men in the incident. Police have started a murder inquiry.
I heard the thud, ran round, and I seen 3 people on the ground. Well, my instinct was to help the 3 people. I didn't know who they were, who'd been injured. I helped the first man, and somebody from behind told me that my son was lying behind me. So I started CPR on my own son. My face was covered in blood, my hands were covered in blood. Why? Why?
Finding memories of him being.
I got 3 kids, 2 boys and 1 girl. Well, I did have 2 boys. He was the youngest, and anything I ever wanted done, I would always ask Haroon to sort it out for me.
Haroon and 2 other men had been part of a group attempting to protect businesses from rioters. One witness said the car deliberately swerved towards them. The ambulance service said when they arrived they took over the attempt to revive the victims, but it became quickly apparent that they'd suffered massive injuries.
We're working hard day and night. These people don't work. They get the money from the dole. That's what they're doing. But the police are not doing nothing. They're not doing their job. I'm telling you truth, they're not doing their job.
Police are appealing for witnesses or anyone with information about the incident to come forward. Around 250 people have been arrested during 2 days of rioting in the city, the 2nd largest in the UK.
And in that report you saw emergency vehicles attacked, such as fire engines who are trying to put out fires and the police who are trying to restore order. Now, the dignity of that man who lost his son was also evident in what he said. He said, "I've lost my son. Do you want to lose your sons? Please stay calm, carry on and go home." Is that not the spirit of Britain there? But what does the Prime Minister have to say?
After 4 nights of rioting on England's streets, Prime Minister David Cameron has spoken again of his determination to end the trouble. He was speaking outside Downing Street after another meeting of the emergency group Cobra.
Good morning. We will do whatever is necessary to restore law and order onto our streets. The police are already authorised to use baton rounds, and we agreed at Cobra that while they're not currently needed, we now have in place contingency plans for water cannon to be available at 24 hours' notice.
The British government is concerned not just with the extent of the violence, but also with the amount of looting that has taken place in cities across England.
Picture by picture, these criminals are being identified and arrested, and we will not let any phony concerns about human rights get in the way of the publication of these pictures and the arrest of these individuals.
Mr. Cameron said he will not allow a culture of fear to exist on the streets of Britain.
So over 1,500 arrests have been made, but there you might say good, that is a good thing. But let's look at the use of baton rounds and water cannon. Can these be used on the Britain streets? I would say they should have been used. But we must be very careful. As I've said in my other video, UKIP, the EDL and the BNP will try and make headway out of this because they're Thatcherites. They infiltrate organisations, and their membership should be very careful about the leadership of the BNP, who despise their members because they're Thatcherites. They're not nationalists. They hate nationalists. But let's also be very careful about Marxist multiculturalists who would try and divide opinion along ethnic lines and balkanise this country. So whilst I am for some kind of short-term authoritarian response by the government in the use of police raids, individual targeting of criminals, and the elimination of all street gangs in the country eventually, and the organised crime criminals who may have been behind the whole riot because of the amount of flow of use of social networks and encryption show that there was some organisation behind this, and it may lead to further criminal conspiracy, as the government has themselves hinted at. But this was all sparked off by the shooting of Mark Duggan, and it might ruin the careers of the officers involved. But that was just the genesis. The other issues involved are very complicated because, as some of it may have had to do with opportunistic looting, yes, but it might have been sparked by poverty, some say, such as Diane Abbott, who I do not usually agree with because she's an arch multiculturalist. What I would like to see is immigration in this country at 2 to 4% of the English birth rate. And what disturbs me about this situation in Birmingham is that, let's say the police were divided on ethnic lines among the different communities as they are in Northern Ireland. We would have a balkanisation of England and among the different ethnic groups, as we saw in London with the Turkish community against the white and black looters and other ethnicities coming from Brixton to do looting in some parts of London which are predominantly Turkish or Kurdish. Now those people there sought to their own defence, but this of course challenges the authority of the police, although I was pleased that they did organise a community defence for themselves. What I'm getting at is, if the English police are not predominantly English, then the glue which holds society together could unravel. We've seen this in South Africa when the people who held society together a bit under apartheid, which was an immoral organisation and system, but they did hold communities together, if only in the enmity that they had towards Afrikaners. Now, we have a different situation. We have a multicultural society. I'm not saying that some of my viewers will agree with that, or that I'm for or against it. It's a fact of life. We are living in a multicultural society. Now, decent people like Tariq Jahun, who lost his son, some people in the Asian community work 14 hours a day, 7 days a week. Hard-working people like them should not have to fear for their lives because of their ethnicity. They should have the English people there in the English police force as the glue that holds the country together, to give them protection as well as people who want to protest because they're in the EDL against black street gangs. So what I'm trying to say is the situation is multi-layered and varied, and we must also look at if the country's being looted by street gangs in petty crime thefts, and they're losing their homes. We must also make sure that the bankers who stole billions and billions of pounds from us lose their homes, if that's the way it's going to be. If we're going to make people lose their homes and deport criminals after their sentences, then it should be applied to every class and every ethnicity. That's all I've got to say on the matter for now. Stay tuned, because I may be making a vid after question time to give my opinion on that. Thank you for listening. We must be firm but fair. We must unite against crime and save our country, England. Keep calm and carry on.